Alright, welcome. This is a quick refresher for Chapter 4, the very important concept of direct objects, as well as the idea of cases in Latin. After a long break, I thought it would be good to review these concepts. So we're looking at the idea of direct objects. So a direct object is the receiver of action in a sentence. So it is the but of the verb, whereas our subject that we've seen before, Cornelia runs, Cornelia reads, Cornelia writes, they don't have a receiver. It's just the subject, Cornelia. With the direct object, we can add something onto the end of that. So we, for instance, Cornelia reads a book. So what is Cornelia reading there? A book. A book is receiving the action of reading. We could have the same Cornelia eats potatoes. The potatoes are the ones being eaten. They're the ones receiving. So you can think of it alternatively as Cornelia being the doer and the book being the doee, the thing that's having something done to it. Cornelia once again doing here, and the potatoes are having something done to them. So in both these cases, the book and the potatoes are the DOs, or direct objects. So this brings us to cases. And what cases are is they're a characteristic of nouns. Like all nouns have gender, all nouns have number, so that's whether they're singular or whether they're plural. And similarly, all nouns have cases. The thing with cases is that whereas gender is fixed, cases, a noun can be in any case that it wants. And what a case does is a case determines the noun's function in a sentence. So it determines the noun's function in a sentence. This is a central concept to Latin. So what do I mean by determine a noun's function? Well, among other things, it can tell us if a noun is a subject or whether it's a direct object. So in some situations, a noun will have a subject ending, and in other situations, it'll have a direct object ending. So we have a similar thing in English, and that's the idea of our personal pronouns. So we have I, and we have he, and we have she. And all of these are subjects. They're all in the subject case. So when I do something, I say I did it. So, for instance, I like penguins. It's me there who's doing it. I am doing it. But, so if I become the direct object, if I am now receiving the action of liking, to carry on this example, I wouldn't say the penguins like I. No, I would say the penguins like me. Similarly, he likes penguins. I wouldn't say penguins like he. I would say penguins like him. Penguins like she? No, penguins like her. So this is an example of the case system in English, where subjects are represented by the pronouns I, he, and she, and direct objects are represented by the pronouns me, him, and her. So another of this in English is the word who. And you've always wondered, I'm sure, about the difference between who and whom. Who is the subject, and whom is the direct object. So you can think about this when you're asking, or actually, it's just any object. There's something called an indirect object as well. You can think about this when you're using these words and when you're trying to figure out how to sound very well spoken and professional and such. And you can use who when you're asking who did that, who wrote all over my desk. But if it's the direct object, he said that to whom? To whom did he say that? You use whom. So that's a little something to guide you. If it's the person who's doing the action that you're asking about, you want to use who. If it's the person who received the action that you're asking about, you want to use whom. Or you can just use who all the time, because no one really pays attention to that anymore anyway. So how does this apply to Latin, now that I'm rambling? Here's how it applies. There is Cornelia, but then there's also Cornelium. And you're going to see both of these in the story for chapter 4 and in the stories beyond. There is Sextus, but then, believe it or not, there's also Sextum. And let's see, there's, and here's a confusing one, walks, and Wokem. That should be in red. These over here are our subjects. They're the ones doing the action. But when they start to have action done to them, they're over here as direct objects. They have separate forms. It's like that word who and whom in English. It's like those pronouns I versus me, he versus him, she versus her. So they actually change their form when their use in a sentence changes. And that's what I mean by the case system, by this case. Is there's one case for the subject, and there's one case for the direct object. That means two different forms of these Latin words. So hopefully that jogged your memory if you got it the first time and cleared things up if you didn't. If you have any further questions, please seek me out, and we'll see how this goes.